Outlaw Rogue is the best DPS spec in the game. And with that hot take, ladies and gentlemen, we can finally say we finished World of Warcraft. I would like to thank the Academy for always being there when I needed cringe and stereotypes. My mom for loving me. Not my dad for restricting my WoW playtime as a teenager, and most of all, I would like to thank the amazing work of World of Warcraft Rogue characters that have provided me with the proper amount of thick motivation to try out this amazing class. Jokes aside, Outlaw is likely the best DPS spec currently designed in WoW and can definitely be used as a template for future reworks that we are definitely waiting for when it comes to Warriors, Hunters, and Death Knights, just to name a few. Why is Outlaw so good though? Plenty of reasons, and by the end of this video I might convince you to give this spec a try, and if enough of us come together, hold hands, we can finally sing together, "Please Blizzard, fix the rest of the specs!" If you have dared to ever step into a group for a dungeon containing an Outlaw Rogue, or even raided with your guildies and that one guy that blasts Pirates of the Caribbean soundtracks during boss kills, you have undoubtedly noticed that hey, Outlaw is doing quite a lot of damage. And to you I would say, congratulations, you are using DPS meters, and so sorry you are not playing Rogue. Because if you were, you would have realized that World of Warcraft is actually the spiritual successor of Call of Duty, a veritable first-person shooter game where all mobs and bosses are basically targets for your pistol and blunderbuss shots, which for some reason we are still not able to equip as an actual item. Blizzard, where does my pistol come from? Where am I keeping it? Why am I afraid of that answer? Outlaw Rogue is probably the best example of a DPS spec doing really well, being meta while not actually making people upset much. Its single target damage performance is top tier, even on patchwork style bosses like Volcaros. Although this is only a mythic log, it does showcase the overall output of the spec compared to the rest. Sure, it's not number one, but being number one means you are also number one on the list for the next set of nerfs. And if Outlaw can do really well in single target, you know its AoE is cracked. It's been consistently A and S tier across multiple rankings, Subcreation being one of them, and our tier list being another. The smoothest of the spec is almost as satisfying as this transition telling you about our Patreon page. It helps support the channel, the tier list, keeps the lights on for our team, and makes this type of content possible. By becoming a member, you will also get early access to videos, custom-made wallpapers with your character, and Marcelian's share of the end of the dungeon loot. The damage is fine, but at one point you will want to actually enjoy doing it, and just like a hot chocolate on a freezing winter day, enjoy it you will. The rotation is really smooth, and every ability, cooldown, and proc flows neatly into one another. And this is all coming off the 10.2 rework. Outlaw has always been a really fluid spec, and it also helps it's one of the highest, if not the highest, APM spec in the game without even stacking haste. Being a high APM or actions per minute spec means there is always something to do, to press, to interact with, and sometimes there's more than you can actually even press. You might think, Flame, having a lot of buttons to press all the time doesn't necessarily make a spec good, and you are right. But in this case, it does, because all of the buttons you end up pressing are actually impactful and rewarding in terms of the end result, the damage. RNG is also a positive aspect of the spec. Hey! Hear me out first. RNG has had a very bad rap across the years, and it was well deserved. And in your defense, Roll the Bones hasn't exactly been a positive expression of that RNG as far as Outlaw is concerned. But you may not know that no RNG is actually boring. Yes, boring. I main balanced druid, and although the spec is fun and I enjoy it, the lack of RNG makes it incredibly predictable. And you might think that's fine, but knowing every spell you will be pressing and the order you will be pressing every spell in your kit gets very repetitive after the 100th raid boss pool or 100th mythic plus key, maybe even sooner. RNG, when done right, is meant to spice up your gameplay. Add little moments of pleasant surprise, like those accidental curly fries you find in your fast food takeout. Sure, you didn't expect them, but boy oh boy, isn't it a treat to realize you are special, because this one thing happened to you and not thousands of other people. That's the same for Outlaw RNG. minus the unhealthy levels of salt, fat, and carbs that look so delicious when you're on a diet and I want one so bad. What's the number for our local McDonald's? Okay. Have it under control. RNG for Outlaw is actually not super impactful to the point where it blasts you to the top of the meters when it happens, nor makes you feel like shit because it didn't proc and now your damage is below the tank. It's impactful enough where you feel awesome when it does, and it also happens often enough where if you go for a bit without any RNG procs, it's likely some 4 to 5 back-to-back crack shot procs are just around the corner. A juicy corner, filled with big crits and curly fries. I cannot emphasize how awesome Outlaw feels to play without talking about the cooldowns, which all revolve around Restless Blades, a mechanic that reduces the cooldown of your majority of your abilities every time you spend combo points. Thus, the combo point economy dictates how often you press your cool buttons like Adrenaline Rush, Roll the Bones, and Vanish, to name a few. In 10.2, you can play an amazing build, especially in AoE, that will give you so many combo points and finishers you will think every day is Christmas Day. Deft Maneuvers is a talent that makes your Blade Flurry give you a combo point for every target it hits once you have activated it. In AoE, you are likely to fill your entire combo point bar in one go, immediately following it up with a finisher. On top of that, the current Outlaw playstyle bakes in ambush into your rotation with Audacity and Hidden Opportunity. You get ambush procs naturally in your rotation, and each ambush generates at least 3 combo points, all the way up to filling your entire combo point bar once again. A rare thing these days are abilities off the global cooldown. Abilities such as Ghostly Strike, which deals a lot of damage, buff you to deal more damage, and generates yet another combo point. It being off the global cooldown means you get an extra ability for free that you can press while pressing other abilities. Adrenaline Rush will give you full combo points when you press it, and all of this comes together with the cornerstone of the build, which is Crack Shot, the new capstone. Crack Shot lets you use your Between the Eyes from stealth and not incur a cooldown. With Subterfuge and Shadow Dance, your stealth windows are likely to be filled with a lot of Between the Eyes casts, because another talent will make it sometimes give you 5 combo points when cast. That means you will cast back-to-back Between the Eyes, and it happens way more often than you think. Adding Vanish on top of this will give you some awesome damage windows that explode in a bullet shower roller coaster of pure magical bliss. Blackbeard would have been proud. Bringing Roll the Bones up again, it has went through so many changes since Legion pre-patch, where calling it RNG now holds as much water as a Proto-Drake's arms. It used to be a finisher that ate your combo points, now it's just a cooldown reduced by Restless Blades. The Loaded Dice talent makes Adrenaline Rush empower your following Roll the Bones to give you at least 2 buffs, meaning the RNG starts at 2 instead of 1, increasing the chances of getting even more buffs with the one cast. Count the Odds is another talent that will occasionally give you a buff for 5 seconds, while the tier set will make Roll the Bones take one current buff you have, refresh its duration, and then generate the additional buffs it usually gives. All of this will give you a lot of uptime on a lot of Roll the Bones buffs, and all of it is so specific and different from each other that you don't really have to think about it. Just know you have a lot of Roll the Bones buff and just enjoy the rest of your kit. You heard all the talk about APM and cooldowns juggling, proc reacting, and so on. Does this mean the spec is difficult? Yeah. And there is no way to sugarcoat it. It's likely one of the hardest specs in the game to play optimally, currently. But don't get me wrong, it's also an incredibly easy spec to pick up and understand. You build combo points, you spend combo points. When a cooldown is ready to press, you press it. Your rotation in single target is the same as the one in AoE. With all of this, anyone can play Outlaw Rogue because at the end of the day, World of Warcraft is not a hard game to play. It does change a bit when you want to play properly. The biggest thing you will want to work on as a new Outlaw player, since I went and still am going through this journey, is to optimize your combo points and not waste them. This takes practice, more for some, less for others, but practice nonetheless. You have to juggle pistol procs with ambush procs, all while Adrenaline Rush and Blade Flurry are both ready to cast, because all of these will give you enough combo points for one finisher and you don't want to overcap on these things. Planning ahead, knowing when things will be available will make a huge difference in your resource economy, something you will also see on the meters. In the process of learning a new spec, these types of things are the most fun to manage and improve on, especially when the reward for doing so actually matters, more than we can say for a lot of other specs in the game. On top of this, as much as I dislike admitting it, managing your resources, your procs, and your cooldowns efficiently is incredibly difficult to do without weak auras. It's probably possible if you are a machine, but you're likely not. There are quite a few plates you will end up spinning, and since efficiency will dictate your overall damage output, weak auras are almost a must. I would say optimizing Outlaw borders on the impossible without weak auras, or maybe thousands of hours played where it becomes second nature and you feel that it's just about that time your Blade Flurry comes off cooldown and your Vanish is also ready. But with weak auras it becomes incredibly simpler and a good stepping stone for learning the spec. Thankfully we have an add-ons video that goes over not just the weak auras that will improve your game, but all of the add-ons that we use to be able to mythic raid and push keys over 20. Click it here and enjoy.